This is Empowering Homeschool Conversations.
We want families to come here and gain insightful strategies that empower them to successfully teach diverse learners at home.
Hosted by founder and CEO of SPED Homeschool, Peggy Ployer.
Our goal is that these powerful weekly conversations will boost your confidence to cultivate the best at-home learning environment for your student.
For more homeschool resources, go to spedhomeschool.com. You're listening to Empowering Homeschool Conversations with Peggy Ployer.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Empowering Homeschool Conversations. Tonight, we are going to talk about setting your struggling student up for learning success. And my special guest tonight is Dawn Spence. Dawn is a homeschooling mom to her 3 children. She has a son in high school and twin daughters in junior high. And she's been married to her husband, David, for 17 years. Dawn is SPED Homeschool's teaching manager, homeschool speaker, and a coordinator at her local co-op. And Dawn is a dear friend of mine. We have known each other for many years and worked together at SPED Homeschool. I remember when we met. So Dawn came up to a booth that I was running at a homeschool conference, and she was about ready to quit. And look at you now. You have a lot of encouragement to share. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to have you on and have you back on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. And I do remember that. I remember being in tears going, I don't know what I'm doing. And here we are, like 10, 11, 12 years later. Yeah. I lost count, and it's been a journey for sure.
It is a journey. And I think that's a good thing to point out, because we often think we have to arrive before we can really do anything good. And yet there's so many things that we can learn along the way. And we've never perfected it. Even now that I'm done homeschooling, I feel like there's so many things that I could have done differently, but it's what I had. And that's what you just use what you got. And
exactly.
That's it. Yeah. So we're going to talk about setting up your student for learning success. And I know a lot of you are starting your homeschool years right now, and maybe you feel like, I don't know what I need to do to set up my child for success. I don't even know what I'm doing. Well, Dawn's great. So you used to work in the public school system in the special education field, and then came home. And I know we've had a lot of discussions about this, but have you been prepared for everything that's come at you in homeschooling your kids because you were a teacher?
No. I mean, it's funny. I was a public school teacher for 10 years and did all these things, and you think, oh, I'll be great at every situation that comes at me. And then you're like, nope. and then you're like, okay. And I know with my daughter's stuff, I've started doing clipboards and stuff for her. And it's just been the last couple of years I've learned how to rotate things where I can continually, I guess, retouch subjects that she may have a hard time with, and then, but then put the new stuff in there. So, I mean, I think we're always learning, right? Just like as our kids are. So, even when we think we have it done, then like oh, that didn't work, and do it again tomorrow. So even the seasoned homeschool moms are still out there learning.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great point. And it just seems like we need to just keep learning ourselves to keep up with our kids. And that's okay. We just learn as we go along and catch things from these podcasts, broadcasts. I learned so many things from my guests on this show. And I'm just glad that this information is getting out there, because it's information I never had. And just to be able to empower new homeschoolers with just various information that may be helpful. It may not, this podcast may not be for you or broadcast, but it may just be hitting a point right where you're at to answer the questions you need. And we do have some viewers on live. I see that you're there. And so if you want to post questions, comments while we're going along. We would love to address those as we're going through the show too. Invite people too, if you feel like they're just diving into this new school thing, or they came back to another school year and they're like, I don't know how I'm going to make it. Let us just be an encouragement to them as well. So yeah, Dawn, why don't you share just a little bit about your story of coming into homeschooling, and so our viewers can get to know a little bit about that story and about you and your family.
I was a 10-year public school teacher. I taught second, third, fourth, and then I taught PPCD, and then I taught children with autism. And I just thought, once I have my children, I'm going to take them to school with me and everything's going to be great. Then I had my twins, and I have one daughter, especially, who needs extra time from me, extra both medical and learning. And I just knew it was not going to be a match. It's funny.
Yeah.
I thought, I taught kids in my classroom who came in and they're like, oh, my mom homeschooled me for the past 3 years, and they knew nothing. And I was like, I am never homeschooling. That is ridiculous. These kids don't know any, but it all depends on how you do it, right?
Right, exactly.
I'm very serious about it. I write lesson plans, and you don't even have to be as serious as me. Some people wake up the next morning and they're like, okay, we're going to learn about choo-choo trains today. And that's what they do. And that's great. I don't roll that way, probably because of my teaching background, but
Right.
It was a foreign concept to me. And I was like, there is no way I'm going to do this. And then just seeing what my children needed, I was like,
Right.
knowing what the special ed had to offer, and it's not their fault.
There are from that side of what you were even able to do for your students.
There are amazing special needs teachers out there, special education teachers. I do not knock the profession at all, but it's what the school districts and just the monies allow you to do, that you can't always do the things that these children need. You have to use the programs that they want. You have to do things that they desire for you to do. And that doesn't meet the kids' needs. We're supposed to be doing IEPs where we're doing individualized, and you can't do that when your hands are tied. And that's what I knew going in, that my daughter was very neurodivergent. She didn't learn the same way that everybody did, but I knew she was smart. And I just knew that if we kept going, we would find what worked for her. Right. And that's why we were like, oh, we'll just take it a year at a time. That was pre-K.
Great.
And now they're in ninth. Yep. And now they're in ninth grade. So, once it started, got to keep, I felt like, oh, okay, it's going to get better and better. And it has. Some years have been harder than others. But in the end, I wouldn't give it back for anything. Just having that time with my kids and getting to know them as people, and that's invaluable.
Mm-hmm. It really is. Yeah. And so both Dawn and her husband your husband still is a public school teacher.
Yes.
And I know a lot of people think that, it's so weird, but there are so many public school educators, administrators that homeschool their own kids. And it's a lot has to do with, when I've talked to others, they've seen just the dysfunction, and they don't want their children to be in that system that they know they could do better at home. So yeah. But so oftentimes we think those are the people that, they're going to be great. Their kids get all the advantages, in school, and yet just the testimony of, homeschooling was our choice. Yeah.
And it's funny because you think, I'm an educator and all this, but then some things I had to learn how to unschool my brain, because my kiddos weren't going to learn the traditional way. And, so I had to put myself out of that schooling box and try to put myself in the homeschooling. And it is different.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's about creating a lifelong learner, instead of just trying to push through the year to year to year. Let's get into, let's finish this year. Let's go into the next year. But it's much more of a continuous process, as what I found with my kids. You wherever they're at in this subject is wherever they're going, for the next year in that
Right.
subject.
And just
And there's a lot of discontinuity in grade levels. I mean, we were talking ahead of the broadcast. Dawn was saying, she just does some testing for her kids and found, just the same thing. And you just teach to where they're at. And
mhm,
then you just keep moving on with wherever their pace is and their level. And that's okay. So I
mhm.
know we're going to talk about 5 specific topics that all kind of center around just setting up your school, your planning, your even kind of just your thought patterns,
Exactly.
and let's dive into the first one about
Okay.
pre-planning breaks and outings.
Um, I have found, like in the beginning when they were little, it was easy to just go on field trips. Like, okay, we're just gonna table everything for a day and let's go on a field trip. And it was much easier. But when you get up in the upper grades and you're like, oh,
Yes.
we go to a co-op and they're have those things that are due, that I sit down during the summer and I actually take my husband's schedule and our schedule, and I try to plan breaks in there. They get their birthdays off.
Yeah.
That's something that we've done since we've started homeschooling, is that, and if their birthday falls on the weekend, they get to choose the day before, or the day after. And so it's just a nice time to let them be celebrated, because they're only
Yes.
going to be with you for so long, and it's like, what's one day
Right.
to do that? And like when my husband has days off, we take days off, because that's, I don't want us to, that's our family time for us to be able to
Right.
do things. And so I kind of just look at the whole year and kind of plan it out. And then I know, okay, and then maybe this day we're going to do 2 lessons, but this day we're not going to do anything. And plan
Yeah.
some fun things over the holidays, some ministries that we do. I plan those into our time. So then when if illnesses or things come up, I have some time to borrow from as well, so
Oh,
that I
yeah.
don't feel so overwhelmed, like, oh, we didn't get this done.
Right.
So I'm a global thinker. I'm a visual planner, so that helps me.
Mhm.
It may not help everybody, but I feel like sitting down and getting a whole plan allows you to think about your direction and what you're wanting.
Yes. Yeah, I think that is true for a lot of people. And even if you just have kind of ideas. If
Mhm.
you're not one of those really meticulous planners, but you kind of have a feeling of, well, in this, month, we should be doing this, or we should
Right.
we should be going these places because this is, probably a better time period, as far as the weather and, all of those things you take into consideration. And also, like with co-ops, like you said, there's other influences coming in, especially as your kids get older. They're involved in
Right.
so many
Mhm.
things that those tend to overtake your schedule as well. And so just a lot to think about with so do you have any favorites of where your family goes and likes to do as far as those outings, activities?
Um, well, I hope at some point this weather gets cooler, because I would
Yeah.
like to get out of the house.
We both live in Southern Texas, so yes, it's been in the hundreds for a month. It's awful. So
Yes.
yes.
Like, oh goodness, are we ever going to get some rain? But
Right.
I like to do what I've tried to do in the past. Haven't been as successful since COVID. That kind of changed things a lot, just
Right.
because everything kind of got, I don't know, it just changed things, even though we're past that, just like the field trips and things. But try to involve things around what we're learning. I would love to probably, this year we're doing U.S. history, and
Ah,
we're not able to travel as much as I would like. But being out, getting out, seeing things, go to museums, trying to involve all that. I tried to do There's a lot of virtual museums. Even if you can't get
Yes.
there, you
Mm-hmm.
can pull them up and look. Try to pull some things in like that. We have a local group, and they do a lot of like going to crocodile encounter, or just, sometimes just getting out and going, I don't care what it is, we need to get out.
Right. Yeah.
Like, even sometimes it's like Dave and Buster's is half price on Wednesday. Let's go. Just getting out and doing something different, where they're like, when they're looking at you with the deer in the headlight look, you're like, yeah, it's time. It's time
Mm-hmm.
for a break.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You kind of get to know that over time as a homeschool mom. Just okay. And I think when you push it, it just, yeah, everything just, it's catastrophic. So you kind
Right.
of learn over time. Now we don't push. We just
Right.
really need a break.
I had a seasoned homeschool mom tell me, that you're going to wake up on those mornings and things are just not looking good. Like, the way you wake your children up is just not looking good. She's like, the biggest thing is that you make sure that their attitude or what's going on with them doesn't dictate what you do, but you set in your mind, okay, mom has decided that today we're just going to do a movie day. And I remember when they were young, it was like, okay, documentary day, just because I knew
Right.
it was going to be a rough day. But she gave me a word of advice. She's like, but you're still the one that's leading the day. And so that the kids learn to follow your authority, but you also
Yes.
know when to give grace.
That's a good point. Because yes, if they wake up, they have a bad attitude, they'll think, "Oh, if I have a bad attitude every day, this
Mhm.
is gonna." But I love how you turned that around and said, "I've decided that today, and it's not based on their behavior, but you bring it from your own perspective and say, yeah, this is just a wise decision for us today."
Right. We've all and
Mhm.
even I have those days. Funny story, one of those days, I'm glad that we did that because our dishwasher caught on fire, and I was
Ah!
I was able to go, "Wait, what's going on? Oh, wait." We were in the living room just watching a documentary, came back, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, our dishwasher's on fire." So it was a
Oh,
perfect documentary day.
yes, absolutely. God had pre-planned that you just needed to
Yeah,
down to be in a down place before that happened.
correct.
Yeah. I think a lot of times though, we get, that fear starts bubbling up inside of
Mhm.
us that, oh man, but if I miss a day, then, my schedule's going to be off or my child's going to get further behind. Um, how have you dealt with that in,
Um,
kind of in the back and forth with, we just can't like keep pressing forward all the time either.
yeah, we've had years where it's been rougher than others, and sometimes just looking and saying, okay, this is why we homeschool. And if we
Right.
have to do some of this over the summer to help us be in a better place right now, and then that's what we have to do. And maybe giving myself, look at the goals for the week and say, okay, what is realistic?
Yes.
Um,
That's good.
what are some things? How can I, you know, move this around a little bit to get the gist of what I need? Or do we have to do all 50 points of history? No, we
Right.
can come back and do like, okay, so we just do the map today. We read the lesson and we just do the map. Okay, fair enough. We
Yeah.
still cover the material. So allowing yourself to like ease up when you need it.
Yeah, exactly. Because a lot of times we do have lofty goals,
Mhm.
but again, going back to what is necessary, what's going to accomplish the goal, and do we have to do it full tilt all the time in order to make our children the best learners? No.
No.
Yeah, and that's just going to stress us all out, and our kids are going to start shutting down. Which I know we've heard many stories as parents have called in, to SPED Homeschool. Dawn has worked the booth with me at many conferences. And, we
Mhm.
talk to those parents that are like just burnt out. They're ready to send their kids back to school. And you narrow it down most of the time, it's because they're trying to push too hard a
Right.
child who really just needs to go at their own pace and just take it one day at a time, and how much can they learn? And yeah.
I mean, I think back to being in public school, I had all these things that I was supposed to teach in a week, and it didn't always happen.
Right.
And I would just do the best that I could, and and then the rest of it would just have to kind of wait, or just do like a quick review, or find a video about that thing that I was supposed to teach, and like, okay, there we go, and we move on.
Yes,
So
exactly.
I mean, that's real. That's just life. That's just reality. And so
Right.
giving yourself that freedom to say, okay, this is what I need to do, but this is realistic. And how can I meet in the middle of those things?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I think that's a good point to bridge into our next topic, and that's easing into the school year. And can you just address what that really looks like, and then why, or maybe some examples of how that's really made a difference in your homeschooling, as you've done that?
Well, I think like in the beginning, I was like, oh, we have to do 15 subjects in one day because we are starting school today. And I'm like, who does this? Even in public school, what am I thinking?
Right.
Like, so then like, okay, so this week we're going to do this. Maybe we do 2 days the first week, and just kind of, do a little bit of history and go get breakfast. That's something we've always done, is like go to Chick-fil-A and get breakfast, or have a lunch that first day, to kind of just be, okay, we're just kind of easing into school, take pictures, just have the
Yeah.
fun stuff. And then the next week, I'm like, I don't have to go on gung ho. Like, we won't do math until the third week, just kind of
Right.
ease in your subjects instead of like going full throttle, because they're not gonna, I don't know. I learned the hard way that it was like being overwhelmed the first day of school, and they're already going, I don't want to go back. And it's
Right.
homeschool. I'm like,
Right.
no, it's
You live
choice.
here, unfortunately.
It's like, why do this to yourself? So I've learned over the years to be like, okay, we don't even touch spelling till the third week, or something like that. Or maybe the first, even when we do math, maybe we do it 2 days a week, and then we kind of ease into things. So just letting yourself ease into those things. I know a lot of parents who only do certain subjects on certain days, and
Oh, right.
you can start that out at the beginning of your school year, and kind of just set that stage at the very beginning. But from all the stuff that I've done in the past, I will never do full throttle again. I learned the very hard way. We're always going to ease into school.
So what have you let determine what you start with? Does it have to do with the amount of coursework involved, what your kids like? What has kind of set the or standard, or is it just kind of different every year?
I think it's different every year. I usually start with our history, because there's usually so many lessons that
Oh,
we
yeah.
need to get through. And so it kind of start out with that. And maybe that's all that, and Bible may be the only thing we do for like the first week or so. And then just start adding things. Like, I know when my kids were younger, instead of just going right into grammar, we would do Mad Libs at the beginning of the school year, just to
Oh, yeah.
review nouns and pronouns, and do it in a fun way. Have them, when they were younger, they had they could decorate their folder, just,
Right.
I don't know, make it where it's a little bit more inviting. It is harder as they get older, when you're like, okay, we have algebra 1, algebra 2, chemistry, physical science. Let's make this, trying to make that fun is a little bit harder.
Yeah, yeah. But as they get older too, we kind of transition them into kind of taking over their own thing. And what I did with my kids kind of at that age was, I said, well, this is what you got for the whole week. Now, how would this be manageable for you to get this done? And then they can look at it and go, oh, well, if I got that and that, I want, or maybe they sometimes wanted to get done with what they didn't want to do first. And so then they could
Right.
kind of ease through the rest of the week. Or they just got done with the fun stuff first and then had to trudge through the rest of the week. And they kind of just learned for themselves. I know my daughter just started college. I was telling Dawn this before she started college on Monday, all online classes. And of course, she's given her whole week assignment. Actually, one paper was due 2 weeks out. She was a little overwhelmed by getting all of this work like on the same day. But once she realized, oh, the due dates were, further out, then she could kind of, ease into that. But
right. We do that
yeah.
too. We do a clipboard. I put their stuff for the whole week
Oh,
on a
okay.
clipboard.
Yeah.
I got new ones this year that actually held paper and pencils, and it was like, okay, this is much better. But so I let them choose, like, okay, so, my son is working and doing baseball now, so he'll do school at night, which is fine. I don't care as long as he gets it
Especially
done.
for a teenager. They're
Right.
so much more productive in the evening.
Correct. But then I'm like, okay, so this is what you have to do for the week. When do you want to get it done? There's certain
Right.
things that they still check in with me about. But that just kind of gives them that autonomy to be able to pick and choose and figure
Right.
things out for themselves. And
Mhm.
even my other daughter that needs me more, I'm like, okay, these are the things that we need to do. Which one do you want to do first? Having them have some like authority or decisions
Yeah.
over what they're going to learn when you're
Mm.
still winning because they're still doing what you need them to do,
Right.
but they're also having some say in it is a good way to do it as well.
Absolutely. Yes. You just control the amount of choices, and the choices are all things you want them to do anyways. And so, but it does feel empowering to say, oh, I want to do this instead of that. And they're all good decisions.
Mhm.
And so good. That's great. Let's do that. And yeah. So what about developing traditions? For the start of your school year, I'm sure you didn't have any to start out with, because you were just starting, but as you continue homeschooling, it can be monotonous.
Mhm.
Once I remember the year of my kids, they were just, it like became a way of life in our home, homeschooling.
Right.
And then it can just be kind of expected. So I love that you wanted to talk about creating traditions for the start of the homeschool year. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So like I said, like going out to eat or having a special meal as a celebration. So also I have, their first day pictures, which as I've gotten older, they really love them.
Oh,
No,
really?
no,
No.
they do
I was
not
gonna
love them.
say, I never did them, and so
But my high school kiddos, I have them wear a t-shirt. I buy them a t-shirt at the beginning of the year of their freshman year, and they wear that for all their pictures. So kind of see them grow through the 4 years.
yes.
Um, I think, setting up the fact that they're going to have their birthdays off, that's a tradition that we've done.
Mhm.
Um, on their clipboards this year, I did some word art and I put their name and who they were, like
Oh,
that
that's
they're,
neat.
an encourager, they're kind, they're, making that. And then sometimes I get them Bible study books, journals,
Mhm.
new art supplies, just something to make that part, just to having the new. When they were real little, I went over to Michael's and got a box and I put all their new stuff in there.
Oh, yeah.
And but now they're older, they're like, they just want, you know, nice Tigeranda pencils and things that, it's like,
Right.
but like getting them a bookmark with the spiritual meaning for the year. I usually becomes like our word or
Hmm.
our, our focus for the year. Trying to think of anything else that we've done. Um, Sometimes getting together with friends to kind of celebrate the beginning of the school year when we're able to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so just making it more fun and not so we're starting school and we're in this for the next 8 months.
Right, exactly. Yes, and to just grin and bear it, 'cause
Right.
Uh, Yeah. Yeah, those little things, and especially if they're spontaneous or they're untypical from, like, the last year, just a little slight difference, it changes the whole environment in your home and how your kids are doing school, and, yeah, there's just a whole lot of power in that change, and I think because we can get in a lot of ruts, and when you can pop out of that rut for just a little while, it's like everybody takes a breath of air, and it's like, "Oh, this is a new way to do school," or, and it doesn't have to be big like you were talking about too. It can be just little things like that, but just to add in that creativity, that spontaneity, and just make it fun. Celebrate your kids. I love that you do that, and you do that a lot, Don. Can you talk about some of the ways that you've celebrated, like, successes? Because I know a lot of times our kids have little successes, not the huge, big ones. A lot of times we have to be so careful to observe them. But what are some of the things that you have done to celebrate those successes with your kids and when they've hit goals and other things like that?
I think like certificates has been one of the things which that can speak to some kids and other work.
Right.
I think
Hmm.
knowing your kids' love language kind of helps. Like,
Yeah.
do they, if the words don't mean anything, then you might as well just, that's not going to mean anything to them. But like, um, I have like, if there's something that they've been wanting and they've worked really hard, that I don't have a problem with them earning something. Just like when we would do a project at work and we get through with it, we get a big paycheck. So it's kind of like,
Right. Like the bonus. Yeah.
it's a
Uh-huh.
bonus.
Yeah.
Just I'm trying to think. My brain is, I think, in the beginning of the school year as well. Uh, but just, for my one daughter, it's I just tell her, like, just encouraging her how smart she is and showing her, like, I'll pull out old stuff and I'm like, look what you did then and look
Oh,
what you did now.
yes.
Even my
Uh-huh.
her twin daughter, her twin sister yesterday said, Mom, look at my handwriting from last year, because we used the same notebook, because I was like,
Oh,
we only
yeah.
used half of it. And
Uh-huh.
she's like, look at my handwriting last year to this year. And I'm like, wow, it's amazing. So just, pointing out those things and,
Right.
um, just I mean, I try to tell them all the time. I try to do a lot of words like, you're smart, because I don't care if we homeschool our kids or not. Hard things sometimes are, whether they have learning disabilities or not, whether we can be the most powerful cheerleaders in their life, sometimes they're
Yes.
still going to be hard on themselves.
Yeah,
And
that is
just
true.
encouraging them, showing them, sometimes you just show them on paper, look where you're at, that's
Right.
amazing. I mean, you think you're not doing well, but you're doing amazing. I showed that to my daughter today with her testing. I'm like, you're like on a college level for some of this stuff. You need to, like, you are so smart, and just because they have a weakness in an area, I think sometimes we have to really over accentuate the stuff that they're so good with, so that
Yes.
they will know that, just because you have a hard time with this does not mean that you're not capable of doing many things, so just
Right.
really encouraging, pointing out things.
Mhm.
I do, like, I didn't do it this last year, but like for Valentine's Day, putting up words and hearts on their
Aw.
walls. I've taken
Mhm.
their names and put them into Bible verses when they've really struggled with things. I've done things like that. So
Mm.
just, um, my husband usually writes them. We didn't do it this year. We've had a lot of going on, but he
I
usually writes
know
them a
you.
note and puts it in their notebook. So like a beginning
Oh,
thing of, we've done like what their names mean and what that means for their life, because that does shape who you are.
it does, yeah.
So those are some examples.
Yeah, those are great, and it's being purposeful in what you're doing versus just, checking the boxes, but it's really being intentional and paying attention.
Mhm.
But those types of things they set your kids up. The word that I was thinking of as you were talking is this perseverance.
Mhm.
And a lot of times we do need that encouragement from people who love us to persevere, because we do kind of feel like giving up. And especially for our kids that struggle, it just feels like the world's coming at them. And the more that you're their cheerleader, like you had said, the more they feel like, yeah, I can do this, and they can start talking to themselves from that side versus oh, I'm just dumb and I can't always do this. And those things go through their head, and we want to counteract them as much as we can with, like you say, words of truth and words of encouragement and words of love, because that's really what they need. And hopefully those scripts will start to stick,
Right.
and for them to realize that that is the truth about you.
Right.
The other things are just lies.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And giving them impactful ways to look at themselves, and just sometimes just changing, just sitting down with them and going, okay, so how, even during a lesson when they're so frustrated, how can we make this better? Letting them start advocating for themselves and using their voices is super empowering as well.
Yes, absolutely. We were going to talk about goals too, and about what we can do to kind of prepare to teach to those goals, to help our students reach those goals. What have you found to be helpful for you in that process?
For my daughter, who I do an IP, that has been super impactful for me, because I think sometimes we get so caught up in, people are so good to tell us all the things that we can't do, that we have to sit back and look at all the things that we can do and all the
Yeah,
ways that we've improved and what we have gotten better at. And so I think IEPs, where you sit down and you do their present level of performance, and you're like, wow, look how far that they have come, and what the next step is. So I think
hmm,
for my daughter who needs IEP, that has been really helpful to just help me see what the next goal is and also know how far she's coming. Um,
right,
I think with my other kiddos, just figuring out what they need for that year, and I kind of already know what's going to be hard for them before they even say anything. I don't say
right.
anything because I know, but I don't want to feed into that, because
That's a
you
good
know
point. Yes, exactly.
I
Yeah,
know this is already going to be tough for them, but I'm going to not say that, but I'm going to figure out how to help them in that. And so, kind of knowing that you're going to have to help out a little bit more in this subject, or um, get them. There was those really cool, I don't know, I picked up a couple off of a clearance, where it's a notebook and then you do a QR code, and then the notes on that notebook become, you can make note cards out of it
oh,
for
really cool.
review. And I'm just reminding myself that I need to get that out, because I was like, that's going to be really good for science, and when you're starting to learn all the languages and all those things. And
Right,
partly with my goals is I'm very eclectic. So whatever doesn't work for one kiddo, that's okay, because I try to find other things that'll work. So
right.
having many tools in your toolbox in case something doesn't work.
Yes,
So, because I mean, not even in your three, if I have three kids, not everything worked equally for them, or it didn't work for me. I started teaching it and I'm like, I
yeah.
don't like this program. So if I don't like it, I'm not going to teach it well.
Oh,
So I'm like,
yes, I had a
let me
couple of
just
those too.
let me
Open
just
the
table
box and it's like,
this.
"Oh, no."
No, but on Facebook Marketplace, brand new, you're
Yes.
like, I'm not doing this. So, um, so though, knowing what you want and what they need, that's kind of how you can set up your goals, is like, okay, if I know that, for example, math is going to be hard, I'm going to pick something. My goal should be to find a way for them to learn that matches what they need.
Right.
It maybe doesn't have to be like a specific, like, I want them to learn whatever, but, you know, I've even talked to one of my friends lately, and it's like, I had a learning disability that I didn't deal with till I was in college, and I never memorized my multiplication facts, and I still, you know, struggle with them sometimes. And I'm the age that I am, and I have 2 degrees, and but I'm doing just fine. And I'm like, okay, so if my goal is for her to understand what math is, or is my goal to frustrate her to learn the facts? So you have to
Right.
sit back and
That's
go,
a great
okay,
point.
big picture here.
Right.
If you
Mm-hmm.
know what multiplication is, and they can draw it out and they can get it however they need to, then that should be fine, because not everybody is going to sit and memorize things. It's not how everybody's brain operates.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you can push it and you can keep working, just step by step where they're at, but don't slow them down so much that
Right.
mentally you're back, years behind where where their brain could function in that subject, just because you're not allowing whatever supports that they need to get there.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think that's a great point to make, because we we can have goals for those things,
Mhm.
but when goals get in the way of success, that or we're hindering like bigger picture goals,
Right.
then we have to think, why am I setting this goal? I know the same thing was with my oldest son. He didn't read for the longest time, so we gave him audiobooks, because my goal was not that he would read at grade level. My goal was that he would love books. You
Right.
know, and so there's the difference, and it's what you were talking about too. Do we want them to have a mathematical mind, to think about these concepts, to be able to understand them, or do we want them to be back in, the rote memory and call that math, because they're really gonna hate math.
Right. You're gonna make it so laborious. They're like, I don't want to do this anymore,
Mhm.
and especially like you try different ways and you do fun things and they still don't work, then you know that it's okay. You just have to figure out that goal needs a side goal, and then just move
Yeah.
on.
Exactly. Yeah. Can we go back to the IEPs for just a little while?
Sure.
Yeah. So maybe parents aren't familiar with an individualized education plan. First of all, they can find a copy on spedhomeschool.com. If you go to our free downloads, you can get a free download. That's one I know Dawn uses. She helped
Yes.
kind of design a little bit of that, added some extra signature lines on that. Because you set that up in the past. You've done it with people that you co-teach with, your therapists, and things like that.
Mhm.
And what are the sections in an IEP, and how are each of those helpful in setting up kind of your overall picture of what you're going to do, and then also measuring progress over the year too?
Right. So, like, I think like the first section is like any testing that's been done, because sometimes like any testing that you can do, especially with your therapist, they're going to have goals in there, and you can incorporate those goals into your IP, so you're not having to reinvent the wheel. You can just
Right.
use some of the goals that they have, and then you're collaborating and working together. I think like the present level of performance, like how they're doing, what they're really well at. I use that section too to write about the past goals and how they've done with that. So kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
give a recap of
Mhm.
these were their goals last year. They like exceeded them, or and it's okay. Like I know we're taught in public school, oh, we do never repeat a goal.
Mm.
If you don't pass it, then just exit it and go on to something else. But that's not life, right?
Right,
If we didn't
exactly.
learn if we didn't learn how to count by money last year, that's okay. We just pick it up and we go
Mhm.
on, and maybe we modify the goal. Maybe our goal was too lofty, or we didn't give enough
Right.
supports
Mhm.
that,
Yeah.
if we went back and modified it a little bit, then it became more attainable.
Right.
Um, And then, you can put in there like what they need as far as supports. Like, do they need audiobooks? Do they need an iPad? What type of things do they need? And I know you and I have talked, and it was, you can create a goal for everything and anything, but
Absolutely.
you can
And there are goal
definitely,
banks of already preset, and we have all that listed. And when you actually download our IEP template, we'll email you every date and walk you through each of these sections now
Mhm.
with links to help you with each section and things other people have written, things we've written on our website. And so you'll have tons of help in filling this document out. Yeah.
And it helps because, like, if you end up going to SSI for your kids who are older and need to get on disability, they're going to ask for documents, and then you already have them created. And that's one of the reasons why I have like all for therapists kind of sign on, is that
Right.
it's not just a parent document. It's a document where a lot of professionals are involved, and in this education. I kind of limit it to 3 goals, I think.
That's pretty typical, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
you
you
can't
can
really focus on more than that.
no. And even if your kiddo has more behaviors, then educational behavior goals are a perfect way
Mhm.
to help them out. If there's a certain behavior that they need focused on, then I mean that's a great IEP goal that and I think, like, when they're older, they actually go to their ARD meetings, the annual review and dismissal, where they sit and talk about the IEP goals and things like that. So as I get older, you can even buy them into that system. Like, okay, what are your goals? And what are some, because I mean, kids know, a lot of kids know these are the things that I really want to work on. My daughter really wanted to work on reading,
Mhm.
and she expressed that to me. So I'm like, okay, well then that's what I need to do, because that's what
Mhm.
you want.
Right. Yeah, and I think too, like you talked about, some years have been harder than others, and it just happens. When you have those goals written and before you, if everything has to be scrapped and we can only have a little time for school, you know exactly what you need to do because the
Right.
goals are the top priority things. And
Right.
and so it just helps you to kind of reprioritize when things in life cause you to have to reprioritize and throw out all the other things. Yeah, and the other point I wanted to make too about IEPs, I know a lot of parents say, "Oh, that just sounds like a lot of work." You're creating a historic record, and we've talked about this many times on our show, but you never know when you're going to need that historic record to advocate for your child or if they're going to need that to advocate for themselves. There's just so many instances, like Don was talking about SSI. Not all Social Security offices require an IEP for assistance, but many do. And
Right.
across the board, and it's just kind of like it just pops up here or there. I started hearing about it in Texas when I was working for the Texas Homeschool Coalition years ago, and since then I've interviewed people from other states, and they said it's the same way across all 50 states. So it just depends on the office and if they ask for it or not. And some parents have to go back and recreate those documents, and that is even worse than just
Right.
sitting down for those couple minutes and just doing that. So just something to think about if you're going, oh no, just something else.
And you know what? If you don't want to do it till, I know one year my daughter was sick and I didn't get, normally it was in like September. And then this past year it got pushed back to October. It's like, if you have to push yourself a month back, then you push yourself a month back. There's no hard, fast, stead way that you have to do it, but just gives your schooling. And if you're year-round schooling anyway, which we do, to do some stuff in the summer, I'm going to be working on the same goals during the summer that I do during the school year.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So we've got about 10 minutes left, and I know you want to end on an encouraging note. So what do you want to tell our community about just taking it as it comes, relaxing, and just what they've been given is enough.
Yeah, I met with a mom from our church that's just starting out her journey, and just encouraging her that, so many times people tell us, oh, you can't homeschool your special needs child. You don't have that. You don't have the education. You don't have all that. And it's like, well, I taught my child how to go to the bathroom, how to brush their teeth,
Right.
how to
Yeah.
get dressed, how to, function in life. And I mean, those life skills are the same teaching you're going to use in everything else.
Right.
Now, if you need some community to help you, if you need some other people to come along with you to do a co-op or whatever, to, that your child needs that, then I would say get involved. But, you have the tools already inside of you to do what it takes. And
Wow.
if if it gets messy and you have a bad day, then you just table it and go outside and blow bubbles and then start over the next day.
That's great. Yes. That's so true.
Because there's some days that are just, I've literally gone and go, if that school bus would just come by, I might shove a child on there. I mean, we're all going to feel that way. I mean,
I
I don't
know.
know any mom that hasn't, but
Right.
then you think, but I don't really want that. At the end of the day, I
Yes.
don't want that for my child. I want
Mhm.
them here with me.
Mhm.
I want, because even their hardest day at my house is going to be nothing compared to their hardest day when somebody's with them that doesn't love them like
Right.
I do.
Mhm. And that they can have that meltdown in a safe place,
Correct.
and know that yeah, they're still safe, and that school's not the most important thing in life. Um, their heart for God is, us mentoring them and to make wise decisions in the world, and to, there's just so much more. And like you said, we all have those days, but we have to remember, why did we start this in the first place? And I think I remember. I don't remember who I had the conversation with, but you have to go back to, what was my main purpose in starting to homeschool, and will that serve the purpose? And you answer that question basically right off the bat. No, it may take care of something temporarily, but it's not going to solve the problem
Yeah.
of
And
why we
just
started.
sitting and, sitting with your kids and, you know, walking through them with things, praying with them through things that, I love the fact that my kids still come and talk with me.
Yeah,
And, that's invaluable, but it's because I know who they are.
yeah.
I have invested my time in
Hmm.
them. I know how they learn. I know how they feel. I know how they think. I know what bothers them.
Right.
And, and I saw something on Facebook the other day, like how many hours we get with our kids because we homeschool.
Mm.
And that, you know, I think just knowing your kids and being able to sit and, in the wintertime, we put the fire in the fireplace and we sit in the living room and we homeschool around the fireplace. That's very valuable to me.
Mm.
Just
Mhm.
having that time of, you know, I don't know, just being that family. And it's not always perfect and it's not always pretty. And we watched Family Camp last night, and I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but
No, uh-uh.
and it says it's messy, but it's worth it. And that's what it boils down to. There's going to be days that are messy
Right.
and
Yeah,
don't go
and
the right way.
yeah. And, the funny thing is that messy learning that we do, little off of that topic, but that's what my kids remember. They
Right.
don't remember the days when I got everything on my to-do list done. They remember the day we made a fort and we all stayed in the fort for the entire day and did school, in cozy under blankets, in Minnesota when it was like below zero outside. And um, that's the learning they remember. And when we reenacted something, and it was messy in my house. There was stuff everywhere. But they enjoyed that. It wasn't that, oh yeah, we got our workbook page done, and all was happy in our little world. So
Yeah,
we just have to
it's
embrace
fun.
that.
I bring up my old Facebook memories, and it's like I remember when the year we did anatomy and we built the cell out of Jello, and um, I kind of miss sometimes we don't get to do that as they get older
As
as
they get
much,
older, you don't. Yeah.
and I miss that part. So enjoy that part because it doesn't last forever, but it's some of my best memories is like we
Mhm.
studied about knights, and I had the kids went to the Dollar Tree and they had, the armor, and we had swords and we sword fought, and building castles out of Legos, or we did
Yes.
the layers of the earth and Rice Krispies. I mean, all of that fun stuff. I would
Right.
just encourage you, have fun with it because it will go by so quickly. And like if there's something, fun or something in the world going on, like there's an eclipse or whatever, take the
Right.
time to go outside and teach your kids
Absolutely.
about that. And, there's somebody like, oh, it's National Donut Day. Well, go get a donut with your kids,
Mhm.
make those memories because that, like you said, that's what they're going to remember.
Absolutely. Yes. And then, it was so funny because my kids talk about those things like when, as they're adults, they don't live at home. Two of my boys don't live at home anymore. But when we get together, those are the things they talk about, which is so crazy. But you are creating lifelong memories for your kids. So don't let those moments pass you by just because you're stressed out that your to-do list isn't getting done.
And you don't have to be perfect because they don't want
Yes,
you to be perfect. They just want you to be who you are.
absolutely. That's a great way to end this. Yeah, yes. Well, thank you so much, Dawn. This has been a
This has
great
been a great
conversation, a good way to get the school year started off.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, thanks for having me, Peggy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad it worked out to have you back on the show, and Dawn has wrote many articles on the SPED Homeschool blog. So if you want to check that out, get more encouragement from her, if you just go to spedhomeschool.com and search Dawn Spence, I'll make sure that I share that in the link too in the description. But and we've created some memes out of quotes from you, and they always get the highest ratings out of all of the things that we put up there, just because Dawn is so real about what life is like when you homeschool, and just kind of our struggles as moms to kind of find our place and to accept ourselves for the broken mom that we are, that is
Right.
still called and equipped to do what God has asked us to do, and that's teach our kids.
Yes.
So
And don't ever hesitate to put yourself in a timeout when you need a break. It's okay.
That's great advice to end with. Absolutely. Yes. Oh, so good. So very, very good. Thank you so much, Dawn. Um, yeah, so we are gonna we'll be back on our regular schedule next week. So our normal shows are on Tuesdays at 12:30 Central, and I'm going to be talking with Lindsay Leveska on purpose-driven homeschool instruction, and just how do we teach our kids what we really want to teach them, and what they really should learn, and what's most important, and really focusing on those God-centered goals versus maybe the most worldly centered goals that the rest of the world is telling us that we need to be teaching them, especially when they struggle. We can get so off kilter with what our kids really need, because there's so much coming at us telling us that we need to fix them, correct them, and focus on specific things in their schooling. So I think it's going to be another great discussion. So hang on next for that next podcast or that next broadcast on our YouTube channel or Facebook page. So yeah, thanks again, Dawn. I just appreciate, and it's always fun to chat with you. So I enjoyed this hour, and hope you did too.
I did. Makes me
Awesome.
help me refocus my mind,
I know sometimes we just speak to ourselves, don't we?
Right.
I find I do the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, that's what I needed to hear, and it was words out of my own mouth.
I know. I look at those memes sometimes. I'm like, I said that. You have to remind yourself of those things.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We are forgetting creatures. God tells us that, and we remind ourselves as well as other people do too. So very good. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for joining us, and I'll see you again next time here on Empowering Homeschool Conversations. Until then, God bless and have a great week.
This is Empowering Homeschool Conversations, provided by SPED Homeschool. Go to spedhomeschool.com to get resources and support for teaching your unique learner at home.